Hey soldiers, the biggest criminal enterprises on the planet are governments. And they're demonstrating that with this new windfall profits tax on energy companies. Now, before anybody gets it in their head that I'm shilling for the energy companies, listen, I don't own shares in any energy company. But you know what? I am a consumer of energy, and I do know that that's just another area where inflation is biting not only the American consumer, but also the European consumer as well. So we've got the European Union and the UK government, both of which are coming out and saying something that amounts to outright thievery. And it's going to result, again, in just putting more pressure on the tax-paying citizens of all of these countries. And we've got Joe Biden, the follower that he is, he's looking at duplicating the same counterproductive measure here in America. Okay, Finland is the latest to propose a 30% windfall tax on power companies. The Finnish government has announced on Thursday that it has proposed a temporary windfall tax. Now, let me caution you about the word temporary when governments use it. Nixon came out and said that the relaxation or the elimination of the gold standard, 1971, he said that was only temporary. Well, here we are 50 years later. Okay, we're still dealing with that temporary measure. So the Finnish government wants to place a windfall tax on profits from the country's electricity companies as part of a European Union response to soaring power costs. Now, get this. The governments created this crisis. Now Finland is in NATO. So they actually are part and parcel of the issue that is driving up energy costs globally. The sanctions on Russia have constrained the available supply of energy out there, so the prices are going up. If supply is down, but demand remains at its normal level or higher, then you're going to get higher prices. Now, this is just basic elementary macroeconomics. These people know this, but they're putting this extra added pressure on the citizen because this is the new regime. The new regime of trying to control taxpayers, trying to control citizens through their money, and in so doing, destroy the middle class. The proposed 30% tax. Now, who wins when taxes go up? Okay, when taxes on corporations go up, do you really think that a corporation is going to just get taxes levied on it, increase taxes levied on it, and not react to that? Do you think they're going to maybe raise prices in order to compensate for that? Right. And who pays those taxes ultimately then? Is it the company or is it the consumer? So the proposed 30% tax would apply to any profits exceeding 10% return on capital in 2023, with the government estimating it could bring in between 500 million and 1.3 billion euros. Euros. I'm hungry. The equivalent in dollars is 533 million to 1.9 billion. Now, earlier I said I don't invest in any energy companies, and it's true. But that doesn't mean that I don't find them to be attractive investments. Okay. I'm not going to make any apologies for my energy consumption, because that is what allows me to speak to you via YouTube and the internet. It allows me to live in a home. We had a cold snap here where one night in my neighborhood, it got down to 4 degrees. And my wife and I, we woke up the next morning. Okay. We didn't freeze to death. We were able to heat our home so our pipes didn't burst. Okay. So I'm not going to make any apologies for the fact that I enjoy the modern lifestyle brought to us by energy. Okay, I watch this channel, and I'll get you the channel. I'll put it in the description. It's about medieval life. And for all of you out there who may, idealize, just a world without the modern conveniences and energy. You don't know what it takes to power the very society that you're profiting from, you're benefiting from. This channel that I'm talking about with it goes over different ways of life in medieval times. I mean, brutal, okay? And I, for one, don't want to return to that. So I like my energy. If the Finnish government goes ahead with its plans, it will join Germany and the UK, Germany being an EU member, that have introduced windfall taxes on energy and power companies. Starting December 1st, Germany introduced a special levy that will see the country's oil and gas and coal firms pay 33% windfall taxes, okay, on their profits, potentially generating a revenue of between 1 and 3 billion euros, Reuters reports. So who's benefiting? The customer is not benefiting because those taxes are going to be passed on to us. The company is not benefiting because some investors are going to say, you know what, I don't like this essential cap on profits, a 10% cap on profits, which is what Finland is basically proposing. So investors are going to back away. But the government, they're taking in more money. More, they call it revenue. It's taxes. And what are they going to do with that? Are they going to turn around and pay the power bills for their citizens? Of course not. The new levy will affect oil, gas, and coal companies whose profits for the current year and the coming one exceed 20%. Okay, so Finland's 10%, and Germany they're saying theirs is going to be 20%. So once they hit that cap, they'll start that tax on them. So it's a cap on their profits, pretty much. However, the tax has a major drawback, according to Katharina Beck, spokeswoman on financial matters for the Greens. The planned levy can be circumvented on a large scale by companies moving profits abroad. She says the draft of the Finance Ministry for Windfall Profit Levy for oil and gas companies falls well short of what is necessary. Now, I bet you Katharina Beck doesn't know the first thing about running a business. That's why she's in government. And a lot of these people that do know about running businesses that have gone over to government, we'll get to this in a minute, they act like they've forgotten what they know, which shows you that this is just government using its heavy hand to fatten its pockets at the expense of citizens, companies, and investors. The fat profits being earned by energy companies in many oil-producing countries, courtesy of high commodity prices, has attracted the attention and sometimes ire of governments, with some of those governments imposing windfall taxes. Back in May, former UK Finance Minister Rishi Sunak imposed a windfall tax on oil and gas majors as the government tries to alleviate the country's worsening cost of living crisis. Rishi Sunak, this gentleman is now the Prime Minister of the UK. And it's important to note that he used to work for Goldman Sachs. So this, as an analyst, so he understands how the economy works. He's just ignoring it because now he works for a new corporation. It's called the UK government, and his mission is to fatten their pockets at the expense of UK citizens. Now, you're going to see how this could culminate in these countries having less energy. Chancellor Sunak said that the levy would be taxed on energy companies that were making, quote, extraordinary profits, unquote. Now, if he had walked up to the C-suite when he was working at Goldman Sachs and bust into a boardroom meeting and said, you guys are making extraordinary profits, they would have picked him up by his belt and the scruff of his neck and thrown him out of the building. Okay, but now he's singing a new tune. Of course, these, quote, extraordinary profits, unquote, are due to a spike in commodities prices, which has been driven by the 2020 crisis. We all know what I'm talking about. And the reaction in terms of sanctions to what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. The British government imposed what it calls a, quote, temporary targeted energy profits levy, unquote, with the so-called, quote, investment allowance, unquote, levied at 25% to incentivize oil and gas firms to reinvest their profits. Hugo Chavez down in Venezuela, and Castro, those guys, they just took over your company, okay? They just took it from you. But the West, they're doing it a little bit slicker, okay? They're just saying, we're not going to overtly take over the means of production because we don't want to actually do the work. We'll just take over the means of production in terms of the profits that you're making. Meanwhile, bumbling Biden, U.S. President Joe Biden, threatened to introduce a windfall tax for oil and gas companies as they continue to post record profits. I don't think old Joe's going to be able to do that, especially considering now that the House is in Republican hands. I know the Republicans are not, the great defenders of, American democracy. They are not standing at the gates of the Republic saying thou shall not pass to all of these socialist types of, initiatives. But, maybe they can stop this. And that for that reason, I don't think Joe Biden's going to push too hard on it. Now, when you talk about this culminating in an actual lack of availability of energy, Exxon Mobile has launched a legal challenge against the EU over the windfall profits tax. Exxon Mobile has filed a lawsuit against the European Union over the tax on energy companies that was announced in September, arguing the move is counterproductive and will undermine investor confidence. Now, look, when people, I know this audience is different, but when a lot of people outside this audience think about investors, think about these fat cats, okay, smoking a cigar, fat guy laughing, ha, 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 maybe getting out of a limousine or a Learjet. Investors are us, okay? In fact, I said I didn't invest in energy companies. I got to check on that because I do have some S&P 500 funds that I'm sure, yeah, I do invest in energy companies tangentially through my index funds. So investors, Wall Street is us, guys. If you got a 401k, an IRA, okay, an insurance policy, permanent insurance policy, like an index universal life policy, you're Wall Street. All right, so when you think of investors, think of yourself. The Texas headquartered oil and gas company announced the legal challenge against the EU, which will be decided by the European General Court. Actually, it should have been decided at this point, or it's being decided here shortly, end of the year. Exxon says our challenge is targeted only at the counterproductive windfall profits tax and not any other element of the package to reduce energy prices. This tax will undermine investor confidence, discourage investment, and increase reliance on imported energy and fuel products. All right, that last part, increase reliance on imported energy and fuel products, that's going to drive up the cost to the end user. European industries already face a very real competitiveness crisis, and governments should be supporting the production of reliable and affordable energy. Look, and it's also not just what you pay in your gas and electric bill at home. When you go to a grocery store, they've got the place climate controlled, especially for certain food products. It's well lit. Who do you think is getting that cost passed on to them? You at the checkout aisle. The other thing is so duplicitous. You ever see the European Union's parliament? Oh, it's so well lit and they all got their little computers and everything. Where do they think they get this energy? They don't care about that because the taxpayers of the European Union pay for that setup. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen announced in September emergency measures that would charge energy companies who make record profits in 2022. It's not an emergency measure. That's taking advantage of a situation to get more tax money. An emergency measure would be to recognize your policies are hurting your citizens and relax them so that they can get affordable energy. Under the new measure, a 33% tax on this year's oil, gas, and coal profits will be rolled out if they are 20% or more above average profits between 2018 and 2021. The measure will be effective December 31st, 2022. Exxon Mobil's lawsuit was filed on the 28th of December by its German and Dutch subsidiaries at the European General Court in Luxembourg City. Specifically, it challenges whether the European Union has the legal authority to impose a new tax and its use of emergency powers in getting member states to approve the measure, according to the publication. Now, where have you heard this before? Additionally, says one of the European Commission spokespeople, Ariana Podesta, the tax will ensure that the whole energy sector pays its fair share in these difficult times. Exxon Mobile reported a quarterly profit of almost $20 billion in October. Fine. They're providing the energy. I have no idea how to go out, find some oil or natural gas and convert it into electricity. All right. So, yeah, I want to stay warm. I want to stay, well lit in my house. I want to be able to cook, over something other than an open fire. Okay, fine. Make your profit. At the time, Darren Woods, chairman and chief executive officer of Exxon, said the results reflect the hard work of our people to invest in and build businesses critical to meeting the demand we see today. See, I couldn't be a CEO. I couldn't do it because I'd say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just stop our operations for 2 weeks and then we'll come back and, after you guys are cold and dark, dirty and malnourished, we'll talk about it. Quote, we all understand how important our role is in producing the energy and products that the world needs, and the third quarter results reflect our commitment to that objective. Now, Exxon is also saying they might have to rethink investment in the region if this thing goes down because it could end up costing them a pretty penny, $2 billion. And then, he's always got to insert himself. Any company receiving historic windfall profits like this has a responsibility to act beyond their narrow self-interest of its executives and shareholders. That's what bumbling Biden, Joey Bananas, had to say about the issue. This guy has never worked a day in his life, okay? He doesn't know anything about what it takes to sign either the front or the back of a paycheck because he's just been guaranteed. He's been on the public dole his entire life. I hate to hear this guy talk about anything related to business. He doesn't know a damn thing about it. All right. So he's totally disconnected, as are many of the politicians throughout the world. So to drive that point home, if you look at what Bidenomics has done to America, look, the standard of living is dropping very rapidly. Over half of American adults are living with their parents. We did a report on it. Here it is. Check it out. Guys, I will talk to you soon.